Walk with me through the cellar door.
The storm is coming, Francis.
A portal to a more skeptical world.
Cellar Door Skeptics begins right now. Prepare for the revolution with your hosts, Christopher Tanner and Chris Hanna.
Welcome to another episode of Cellar Door Skeptics. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. We are back. We've been pre-recording, trying to record ahead. We've been doing all sorts of different things, trying to make the experience more pleasant for everyone. I've
the fire out, our hair, it's on fire at all times at this moment in our lives.
It kind of feels like that. I mean, there is some issues that we've taken with the administration, and it was funny before the show we were talking about Russia, and it's like, have you all had enough Russia talk? And so then we're like, screw it, we'll scrap it this week. Maybe we'll talk about it next week. Maybe we won't. I don't know. All I can tell you is that we've had enough Russia to choke a horse. And I'll be honest, I've read a lot of Russia, and then we're talking about it. It's like, well, we could go either direction with this. And then it's like, maybe we should just avoid the Russia talk for this weekend.
I think the only enjoyable thing about the whole Russia thing was when Melania Trump had to shake Vladimir Putin's hand. Did you see that clip?
No, I haven't.
There's a clip of it. Anyone, you can look it up. We might even throw a link into it in the description. Melania Trump is from like a Soviet satellite country. I can't remember which one, but it's like she grew up in that kind of environment where like the czars and everybody were like these monsters and the Russian plutocrats. Well, anyways, she has to shake Vladimir Putin's hand when Trump meets with him, and then she looks away with this face of like, oh my God, like this terror and like exasperation. And it's like, that was the scariest thing she's ever had to do. And they were talking, and like there's a bunch of people talking about, it's like, listen, you got to think about her origins and where she came from. This is like shaking the devil's hand. And it really was freaky.
Do you think it's like a living nightmare for her, right? Like, I mean, she's like, oh my God, I've dreamed about this. I dreamed my husband would be president someday, and oh my God, here we are. Here we are, and I have to shake this dude's hand.
Yeah, well, like I honestly don't. I think it's more like, I mean, this is kind of base to say, but I really think that their relationship is kind of like a mail order bride thing. Like, I really don't think they're close. It just seems like, you've seen all the little clips where she like slaps his hand away, and like I don't think that they're close. Like, it's like a mail order bride where she said, yeah, I'll marry you and we'll have a kid. But you're going to stay in your own room, and I'm going to have access to all this money, and life's going to be really great. Okay, I can sacrifice that little bit. The reason being is because like, I mean, it really does seem like she came from over in that environment, and she went into Europe, and she didn't have as successful of a modeling career as she expected. And then she came to the U.S., and this real estate magnate had just become divorced, and so he was interested in her. And it's like this weird thing, like the old style of marriage, where like it was like an economic decision more than like, a love decision. And so but her past comes back to haunt her when this guy seems to make best friends with the guy who was essentially the societal oppressor of her childhood.
Exactly. And it's just like, I mean, it would be like, I don't know, I feel bad for her, me, like I can accept and say, hey, I'm happy you made a decision financially. Yes, if that's what you would like to endure, hey, more power to you. I don't see any harm in it. But at the same time, I can feel empathy in some aspects, because it's like, that feels like a nightmare. It'd be kind of be like if somebody like married into a family and then had to go hang out with Mussolini, and it's like, yeah, you tortured me, or you tortured my family, and yet here we are having this conversation. Like, that would just be awkward. Yeah. You'd be like, embarrassing. No way in hell would we want to ever get to that situation. I don't know. Yeah. But we decided to forego the Russia talk tonight just because. Yeah. Well, we spent an hour talking about it before the show, and then it's like, okay, you know what? There's nothing of value that you and I are going to bring to this conversation that hasn't already been out there.
I think the professionals have done it.
Yeah, I can recommend NPR head over heels for the amounts of coverage they've put into this, and I can just say You want a Russia update? Go to NPR.
Yeah.
We have better things to talk about. And the first thing, exactly, like the very first thing that I thought it was a good idea to talk about was a Forbes article, which I believe is now deleted. I have found like a backup copy, and I don't know if this is a live backup copy or not, but there's a Forbes article that talks about how Amazon should be replacing local libraries to save the taxpayer money. Now, you and I disagree a little bit with you in the conservative side of Forbes. I feel at least at minimum they're a neocon paper or online paper.
I mean, they're not like a Tea Party rag, but they are. I mean, they definitely spend their time with people like George W. and a lot of that economic policy. That's kind of where I'm throwing them at. Like they're not just, you know, this isn't Marco Rubio or Rand Paul or Ron Paul or any of that. I mean, they have that libertarian swing to them, but I mean they're definitely not heading down the Ted Cruz pathway. They have some moderate stuff here and there because they kind of have to. They have to appeal
I don't know
a little
about that.
bit.
Dude, we've quoted them before though, Hannah, like to talk about different Trump economic policies that they felt were going to fail. And like that's
the centrist side. No. That's really is like
pretty far centrist. I mean, because it's not a GOP failure. They're not calling out just the GOP. They're going out of their way to find the Trump policies that he's putting in place and saying this is driven by Trump, not the GOP. Therefore, you know, this is why it fails. And I don't know. I guess maybe I cherry picked the articles, but I didn't see what you saw until I read that article and almost just pooped my pants. It was that bad. I was like sitting at work.
Very specific there.
Well, I was at work. I was at work and I was like scrolling on my Facebook. And then I was like, screw Facebook, and I flipped over to Reddit. And I'm going through Reddit, and all of a sudden this article pops up because it's trending. And I'm like, Forbes believes we should get rid of libraries. Who thought that was a good idea? Like, just say that out loud. I encourage everybody. We should replace libraries with a capitalistic corporation. Yeah, say it out loud. Do you feel good about it? I don't feel good about it.
No. Well, the biggest thing is that this was an opinion piece. This was an op-ed. And Forbes, their official disclaimer was they like to have different perspectives. They love to have different ideas, and they like to post a contrarian point of view. That was their official place. And they said, but this guy, this is outside of his area of expertise, and the article has been removed. Essentially, what they're doing is trying to cover their tracks because they like to push the button. But this was pretty absurd in all reality. Like some of the arguments he was making and stuff are patently, provably, demonstrably wrong. So I don't know. I definitely like the libraries, and I know that you do as well. I mean, I'm not even. I would say I'm middle class to lower middle class with a family income of under $85,000, which is the threshold for the ACA for whether or not you get any money for being a part of the healthcare plan there. So like, I'm in the area where if I put up my family's income, I get money back, and I do. I take advantage of that. Anyways, this guy basically talking about libraries being like a burden on taxpayers. There's at least 10 to 15 books in my house at all times from the library. Children's books, my wife's books. I was just reading How Bernie Won by I can't remember his name. He was Jeff Weaver. And like, I mean, just the things that you get out of the library are not just books. We get all kinds of stuff from classes for my daughter and other stuff. The library is amazing. I never spent as much time at the library as I did when I had a kid. My first kid. And like I went when I was younger, but I go all the time now. Like totally great environment.
Well, and we do too. You know, I mean, I'll be honest. As children, we actually went to the library quite a bit. We were always involved in the reading program, so we're there every week. You know, and I always read enough books to hit the minimum or more. Like I love Garfield. I'll be honest. Like that's kind of a secret thing I don't tell very many people. I don't really care for lasagna or cats, but I love Garfield.
You like derogatory sarcasm.
Yes.
You're just like,
yes, that fit my personality. I was like, oh, that's me. That's how I'll be in 25 years. You know,
like kicking Nermal and like torturing Odie. That's basically your life.
Yep. All right. That's kind of fair. You know, like the Odie is kind of like the creationist Republican, and you know. Anyway, but they So I always got the Garfields. That's where I fell in love. I would draw Garfield. I like Calvin and Hobbes. Huge Calvin and Hobbes fan as a kid.
Yes. Bill Watterson, the most principled of all of the cartoonists, wouldn't let Calvin and Hobbes be monetized, and that's why there was never live adaptations or comics or movies or cartoons, and it stayed this beautiful, pristine thing that Calvin and Hobbes is.
Yeah. And I really admire, back then I didn't know any of that. I just I like the humor and I like the cartoons. And we would, it's kind of funny because I would read them with my cousins. And, everybody who listens to the show knows I grew up ultra religious, right? So, there's that.
So Calvin and Hobbes was okay?
It was, actually. And even though, going back now as an adult and rereading some of that stuff, you're like, that's pretty challenging to the Christian narrative right there. Holy crap, I can't believe anybody didn't catch that. That's how much they were vibed or didn't care about what I did, as long as it looked like it was good behavior. And because Calvin and Hobbes back in the day was never called out to say, hey, look, this is atheistic content. This is, pro-science content. Nobody ever did that. So it never came to the surface.
The biggest one, all I had to do was do a quick search. This is the best Calvin and Hobbes one of all times. Calvin says, so this whole Santa Claus thing just doesn't make any sense. Why all the secrecy? Why the mystery? Why the guy exists? He doesn't know. He doesn't ever show himself and prove it. And if he does exist, what is the meaning of all this? And Hobbes says, I don't know. Isn't this a religious holiday? And Calvin says, yeah, but actually I've got those same questions about God.
Yeah, I know.
It's just an awesome bit, and it was just such a smart and intelligent comic. So yes, this is about libraries, not Calvin.
But yeah. Anyway, so back to the library. So we used to go actually quite a bit as kids. There you go. That's where we were at. And it's kind of funny, neat story. Tonight they have this thing called Zealand Mania, downtown Zealand, right? And they put together. It's basically a bunch of local businesses and a lot of churches giving out free shit. They now have paid food trucks down there. They had this taco truck, and I was very sad because I didn't know it was going to be there. And we ate an amazing dinner before we went down there, so I'm not hungry at all.
That's
I'm
awesome.
oh man, there's a taco. Oh man, if I'd known they had taco trucks, I would have not eaten and just eaten anyway. But so we're down there, and it's all these churches and things giving out this stuff, right? And tonight was superhero night, and it's kind of funny because you go by the churches. There was no Jesus cosplay. There was cops and firefighters and Batman, or there wasn't Batman, I'm sorry, Captain America and Wonder Woman and Thor, and there
what about
was...
some of those, those comic characters, or Jesus Man or something? Is that the one that you forced me to watch?
Bible Man.
Salty,
Man. That was Salty
Bible
that
Man.
we watched. Salty and Bible Man. But,
wow.
None of those were down there. And there's just churches handing out free stuff. And I decided, I think, next week I'm just going to wear my I'm an Atheist shirt just because I can, just to see if I get if the churches are like, yeah, we can't serve you. You just want to see if they won't serve me, so I could I don't want to create a scene because it's my kids, but I just want to see if they won't. No, I don't want to make my kids feel uncomfortable. But
you don't have to go. You can tell them to go hang out with Ma, and you're gonna go over there and start some trouble.
But we so anyway, you walk up to there, and I do usually have different, but they just ignore me and they give you the free snow cone. And in the end, if that's all the church does, you get the free snow cone, the popcorn, the cotton candy. I just don't preach it. I don't care. You can hand me a track for all I give a crap. Anyway,
tax free, baby.
Long story short, we go down to Zealand Mania, and they actually the downtown has the library right next to it in Zealand because it's a smaller community.
Yeah.
So you walk down Main Street, do all this stuff. To my house, you have to literally walk right by the library. So we're on the way home. It's 7:45. The library's open to 8. As we're walking by, my daughters are like, "Hey, can we go to the library?" I'm like, we just saw the library people standing out in the street. We could have got books from them. Well, they didn't have the books I wanted. Why didn't you go with your mom earlier? Well, she was busy doing this, and that. And I'm like, okay, so fine.
And it's more fun going with you because you start fights with people.
Yeah. And they're like, can we go to the library? And I'm like, honey, it's closing in 15 minutes. They're like, we know what we want. We'll be quick. All right. So we did. We walked in there. And in the long run of things, actually, every librarian was very super nice to us. They were all excited that we were there after Zealand Mania. They were asked if we saw the kiosk and if there was any books that we could put on the kiosk that they would like next time. And then they, you check out, and they were excited. We were in and out in 7 minutes. My one daughter had 6 books, and my other daughter had 3. One of them was about Julius Caesar, weirdly enough, entitled "Who is Julius Caesar?" And I asked her why she picked that, and she's like, "I don't know, it just really looked interesting. He's wearing leaf in his hair." I was like, "Okay." I was like, "All right, let's read it and talk about it, because I think we should talk about this." But the library, like the community experience, and I'll be honest, I've never been to a library that I have not felt part of that community. It doesn't matter where you go. There must be like a evolutionary instinct to be a librarian, right? Like you have that built-in ability to relate to everybody, feel empathy for everybody, and want to teach everybody all at the same time. And
that's kind of like the educator thing. Like in most cases, like I really think like the creationist who wants to exclude, people who believe, and like the teacher who is like, I only want to give good grades to white students. I really think that teacher is in a minority. I really think that like the people who want to teach and educate children and be part of great communities, they are the majority. It's just they don't yell enough. They're not loud enough. They just do good things for people, and they go home and they live their lives. And like librarians are the same way, man. Like, do you get a degree? They're like, librarian is a bachelor's degree or a master's degree. I believe, as far as the length or extent that you can get it in. I mean, they're unbelievable. And I mean, these people really, the whole point of their entire education, everything, is the dissemination of education and helping people learn. I mean, and they really do have like it's an altruistic job by nature and by title. It's awesome. I don't know. One of the things that I always like to talk about with libraries and stuff is it's like the same thing that I talk about when it comes to investing in children, is that for every dollar invested in K through 12 education, a lot of cities, I think it was one of the statistics, I think it was something along the $7 range for return on your investment. After 18 years, you've got an adult. This person goes out into the workforce, either goes into college, and then their return is even higher for what they bring back to your city. For libraries, there's a Guardian link that we have included, and for every dollar of taxpayer money spent on public libraries, the return on that investment is $4.64 to the economy. Like, that is a positive net influx to the economy. What you're providing as a service and for resources for the people helps the people. I mean, I've never seen a private corporation, something like Amazon, come into a company or into a city and naturally be an altruistic thing that helps people. Because, I mean, like you said, your one daughter had 6 books, your other daughter had 3 or 4. $15 a piece on those. How much money are you spending if you wanted to buy those books? Your daughters can read them, then put them on a shelf and never touch them again. But with a library, they can read, maybe read half of it. Who cares? They're still learning something. Take it back, move it on. I mean, there's something that you can get from that. That's a resource. And they're talking about it, something like $450 a year or whatever is your cost. If you do that in days, that's less than $1, or that's just a little bit over $1 a day. I can afford that. And some of these places, their tax base for all the millages for their library. There's some people who have tweets in here that are quoted. It's like 37 cents a day.
Yeah.
This is not a losing investment, and Amazon will never be able to put that much quality and content in anyone's hands for that lower price.
Exactly, and like, I guess I got maybe I was triggered. Maybe I was a snowflake here, right? I mean.
You don't like capitalism enough.
I'm just befuddled. And it's kind of funny because I did this, and then all of a sudden I sat there and realized, I have an Audible relationship with Amazon. I get a free book every month for X amount of dollars, right? For $15 or whatever the hell it is.
For your Prime thing? Or what?
Well, yeah, I pay for Amazon Prime, and then I also pay for Audible because I've just...
Oh, shit.
Because I'll be honest, I try to read a book a month, whether I try to read nonfiction, but... Yeah. I'll be honest, it's really hard lately because everything is just so awful. I read a lot of fiction. Like, I went through the Game of Thrones series, the whole thing. And then we were talking, I read some of those weird futuristic science dystopian books. And then
you were going through the Neuromancer and all that stuff.
And then I switched to some lady that's similar to Game of Thrones, but not quite as in depth, but pretty similar. And it's called The Realm of the Elderling series, and it's like the assassin and the apprentice, and The Fitz and the Fool and all these other things. Like she's pretty unknown, but she's pretty popular in some aspects. I mean, like there's Facebook groups for it that people post in every day, you know, and like all these different things. And I fell in love with these books, so I've gone through literally their whole series. But it's all been through Audible because I listen to audiobooks on the way to work and home. And if I travel in a car, I don't listen to music very often unless the kids complain about it. So I'm reading and books. And then I have this article come out from them, you know, basically saying we should replace Amazon or replace libraries with Amazon to save people money. And I'm sitting here going, wait, hold on a second. Now I want to reanalyze my Amazon Prime account. Maybe there's another alternative. And, hey, by the way, there's something called Overdrive.
Yeah.
And if you have a membership to a library, you can get these things. Fuck.
The Kent District Library just changed over to this cloud thing. It's not Overdrive anymore. It's I got the app right here. Cloud something. Where is it? But anyways, it used to be Overdrive is what they had, and Cloud Library is what the Kent District Library, so Kent County. So there's Cloud Library, there's Overdrive, there's a couple of different ones that deal with the public libraries all over, but they're all doing basically the same things. They're linking all of the audio book licenses that the library has, and all of the ebook licenses that they have. So like they have a certain number of books that you have, and so you put things on hold, and it gives you an email notification when that book is available. And I would say that I had a recommendation from someone that said, listen, you need to check this book out. And I couldn't find it anywhere. I didn't really want to buy it. And so I looked up Neil Stephenson's Cryptonomicon. And that book was in my library under hold for the audiobook. And it's a 72-hour book. It's a monster for an audiobook. And it's one of the most enjoyable experiences of my entire life of any book I've ever listened to in an audiobook. It's a nerdy, dorky, gloriously numbery book, and I highly recommend it to anyone. So this is something like you were just talking about some books and stuff that like it's fiction, but it's got these weird ties into reality. So it kind of reminds me of the Benedict Cumberbatch book or a movie that he did recently about Alan Turing, where they broke the code. Mm-hmm. And so the Cryptonomicon is essentially based in that the people who solved those problems and solved those puzzles and broke the codes. Well, this book is just really cool. It's awesome. It's like multiple layers and all this stuff. But anyways, like this is something that was given to me for free or for my taxes for just being a citizen to my library, and it's an undeniable experience that I may never have experienced because of that. And then thinking about all the things that I get from my daughter gets from all the books that she reads and everything that she goes when she goes to play at the library and she meets other children there and they're speaking in Hindi or they're speaking in Spanish and I trying to help communicate with them. And their parents are trying to help communicate with me and or this environment of, this diverse environment, this place where you're seeing the real America. You're not seeing this Amazon Prime or you're not seeing this Starbucks, because that's one of the things about the guy who criticized libraries and said that Amazon is giving. He said that more people use their Starbucks rewards card than use their library card. I beg to differ, man. Like, I tell you what, the people who are, the minorities and all of the diversity in this country, I guarantee you they use their library card way more than they use their Starbucks card. Like, talk about a Seattle entitlement, perspective on that one.
Yeah. It's that hipster mentality that's like, hey, we should all be like this. Well, think of it this way, man. Like, okay, my sister and brother-in-law are uber Christian. And my brother-in-law rallies against any social program pretty much all day long. And yet they come to social functions. They both don't make a lot of money. I mean, they make okay livings, but neither one of them have big degrees. And
well, it can't be a secular social program. It's a church social program. That's different, right? Like the whole idea of socialism, it has to have like part 2 with God, and then it's okay.
Yeah, and they don't like social handout programs. Period. They like handouts for my parents, but they don't. But it's kind of funny because, again, ironically, today we're talking about this, and guess what? I get a picture in my Facebook feed from her Instagram, right? it literally shows a picture of her son reading this book she got at the library, basically saying, yes, I'm very excited the library exists. We love these days because we could check out books we could not normally afford. And I'm like, that, folks, right there, that to me is like why you can vote Republican beyond me. Like, just that right there. If Republicans had it their way, we'd have Amazon Books as the new library where you had a $15 a month membership to take your family, and then it's another $10 a person to take each one of the kids, and $5 for kids 5 and under. Right? Capitalism ruins things. What does libraries do? It teaches your kids to read. It teaches social integration. I mean, I'll be honest, I didn't get much social integration from the library. I sat in a corner and I read for hours on end. My mom would take my younger siblings and they would walk around the library. But
I think the social aspect of libraries is relatively new. Like when I went to libraries when I was younger, like it was like you went for books and you went to read, but they didn't have like all kinds of programs. Like I think they really have innovated over the last 10 years or so to add all of this stuff. Like I know they always had children's stuff, but like I don't remember like there being like English language classes. I don't remember there being like classes about like there's a guitar, how to learn how to play guitar class and like acoustic guitar at my library right on Breton in Kentwood. Like I just in there playing with my daughter and look up and it's like, yeah, you want to come here and learn guitar? Just come here on a Thursday. We'll teach you how to play an instrument. Like, holy you know what you would pay to get guitar lessons?
Yeah,
like
$100 an hour.
Yeah, $30 a half hour, $100 an hour. Like it's insane. And it's like there's another guy in the Guardian article. He says that cost to individually buy the 6 books I have on hold this week, $70. The amount the Altadena Library Special Parcel Tax cost me this week, 75 cents. Somebody help me budget this. I'm not the chair of an economics department. Like that's really what it is. He has 6 books on hold for $70. He will potentially pay approximately 75 cents for that week for those books if he gets them all when they come in or whatever. Like that's the reality. That is the money. So like if you put $1 into a library, all that money that you're putting in there for all the books and everything, like you're getting more back than you're putting in. I don't care who's doing this. So like the whole thing of the backlash for this guy basically being out of his norm and using it as an opinion article to kind of spark some controversy. Like he is rightly called out, and I think Forbes is right in pulling this article. I mean, I really do. I think they did the right thing.
Yeah, and it's just, I don't know, I mean, the outrage in me when I see that, because like I get people want to rally against social programs, but the library of all things, like we're teaching people to be more smart. Why is that a problem? Why is that a problem that we want people to be more smart? And then I think of the Trump era, and maybe this is a little bias in me, but
somebody benefits from that.
From people being dumb. Yeah, like, and look, I'm not saying all Trump supporters are dumb, but I mean,
oh no,
I'm just, you can see a correlation between people that want the wrong kind of change and don't care what happens and believe in sensationalism. I don't know. I don't know. I got to stop because it's going to go down a very anti-Trump tunnel in a few minutes. But I can't understand why anybody would want to get rid of libraries and pay a membership. Like, I just, and maybe I get it. Maybe there's a
very privileged person. Yeah, a person who is way privileged to the point where they're just like, why would I need to do that? I can just go buy a book when I want to buy a book. Why would I not? Why would I ever go to the library to borrow one? It's got other people's germs on it. Ew. Like the whole point of that thing is just that there's a privileged dude who has never really had to worry about like, man, I would really like something to read, or what if I got a book that can teach me something, but I can't afford it? I can't go to a bookstore and buy a book. Like that thought probably has never been in that dude's head. To be able to denigrate a library like that. Like, I just don't see how that's possible.
And so the last thing I'll say about it, and then we can move on from the library side of things, is, the other, this last winter, the wife and I were out and about. We went to a local library. We had to make some photocopies. We didn't know where else to do it, right? We had to print some stuff out. So we went to the library. And you got to pay to do that, in fairness. Yeah. And it's not cheap, but you had to pay. So it was like $1 a page or something like that. I don't know.
Holy shit, that's expensive. You should go to Kinko's, brah.
Yeah. But the library was right down the road from where we're at. So we had to make a photocopy, or we had to print some stuff out. We had to do this. So, and maybe it wasn't $1. I don't remember what it was. But it was definitely costing money. So, but the long story short is we're there, right? We're talking to the lady, and as we're waiting, there's this guy sitting at the table, and I just happen to look over at his book, and I'm like, hey, that's an interesting book. He's like, yeah, I'm reading about the history of Holland and how my ancestry, how these people all work together, and I'm finding out new things. And my wife was talking to him, and she's like, "Oh, hey, well, what about this?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, we know where that place is." And come to find out, in the long, weird rung of things, their grandfathers or things like somehow they knew each other, and like they were able to relate on a personal level. And this guy was in his 70s, and like just to think he got to get out of his house, have a conversation with a real person that genuinely cared about what he was talking about on a random happenstance. That's amazing.
That is pretty cool.
Good for him, Cool. You are not going to get that in his Amazon books. You're not going to get that at Starbucks. When I go into Starbucks, I'm more worried about who's going to talk to me and how much my damn coffee is going to cost, and if somebody's going to try and hit me up, to buy a muffin and a bagel plus my coffee,
I tell you what, if I'm at a store, like a retail outlet, and someone starts to talk to me that isn't like a person I'm paying money to get the hell out of that retail place, I am angry. I'm angry. You're slowing down me leaving this place. Like I don't understand. Like, it's like, hey, can I help you with something? Did I ask you something? No. Okay, goodbye. Like I just like you're never gonna get that at a library. Like if like you're just waiting in a library, everybody's having a good time. Like I mean, maybe you might catch one nice guy in the line at the Amazon bookstore where like as far as I know, when you go to the Amazon bookstore, you don't actually get to leave with a book. Do you? I think you got to scan it, and then you go home, and they send it to you.
I don't know. I've never been to an Amazon bookstore. I've been to Barnes & Noble, and you leave with books if you buy them.
Yeah, I know you do. Yeah.
I've never been to an Amazon store.
I thought there was an Amazon bookstore where it's like when you pick the one that you want because you're looking at it, and then like it's sent to your house. All I know is that the happy thing that made about this is that there were some people who were boycotting the Amazon bookstore. They actually prevented them from opening the other day in New York, I think it was. Because we'll get onto this topic probably in a future episode. But there is some shady stuff that I learned about Amazon today that I really want to talk about. And so we'll talk about that in the future about like Amazon may not be as awesome as everybody thinks it is.
No. Kind of the same way with those who decided to vote to not raise wages because inflation, folks, has hit a 6-year high, and it's wiped out any wage gains by the average American from the tax plan. So prices have rose, it seems like, Hannah. And you had this article, and I'll be honest, this kind of made the rounds. It's shown up quite a bit in my Reddit feed. And yeah. At first I was kind of like, all right, there's no way this is correct, that really inflation has gone up that much that it doesn't matter what you got as a raise. You're still at the same place you were 6 years ago. I just couldn't imagine that was a logical endeavor, I guess.
Yeah, in the end, really what we're looking at here is that what the Fed has done is they're finally increasing interest rates because when you artificially hold down interest rates, it increases inflation. But there's also some other things that are driving inflation right now that are kind of important. So there are productivity and economic gains that are happening across the board, but we're not seeing a lot of wage gains. And so what they're seeing is that the inflation is kind of pushing things outside the realm of wages, but wages aren't going up, and it's a confusing thing as to why people aren't, why the wages aren't growing. And there's a couple of ideas and a couple of things that, but in the end, on average, just this is just the numbers to start this entire conversation. Is that there's a 2.9% inflation for the 12-month period ending in June. It's a sign of a growing economy, which is good, but it's also a painful development for workers whose tepid wages have failed to keep pace with those rising prices. So they just said that worker wages, I believe, for last year, I think it was like 1.9% or 2%. I don't know if it's linked into this article, just from listening to all of the experts and everybody that I've been that I regularly follow, that wage inflation is only or wage increase is only approximately around that 2% range, and inflation is higher than that 2.9%. So what that basically means is that the cost of everything you regularly buy, some things a little bit more than others, obviously, because this is an average, cost more. And if your wages aren't increasing at the inflation level, then everything costs more, and your wages only increase a little bit. So on average, you spend more for your overall on the year. So you have a net negative total, the money left over that you would be able to save. And that's a big issue here. And what that total money left over that you would be able to save is approximately what the tax plan from the GOP would have given you. And that's kind of what they're saying here, is that that's wiping out the wage gains and the tax reliefs that you'd be getting from all of these highly touted plans. And so that's kind of the area where we're trying to talk about whether or not the new tax plan and all of these wage gains that everybody's been touting, saying the economy is growing and doing really well, we're kind of net breaking even here, and it's not this really big gain. And also, in the end, the people who have tons of money, who are making tons of money as far as capital gains, which are taxed at a lower rate of 15 to 20%, they're making money because they don't have a tie-in to the wage level as far as inflation is concerned. And that's kind of what this article brings into mind.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny because we've heard, the economy's good, every wages are going up, but if the average household income, let's say, makes $15 an hour, right? And even if you have two parents that are doing it, you make $30 an hour, but you got to pay child, care. You have to pay for food to put on your table, transportation, all these other things. Like when insurance costs, when you build all this in there, and they're like, well, we're all in debt. We can go back to school, we'll be in debt. We can not go back to school, we're in debt. It doesn't matter what we do, we're in debt. And people are like, well, I don't understand how you guys can afford your lives. And you're like, well, look, even at $15 an hour, you're not paying people a living wage. Rent costs so much more than that because we have zero ability right now to constrain that. And, you were saying a second ago, it feels like people aren't seeing that gain. If you don't make more than that per hour in your wage increase, you're not able to recover the cost. And I can admit that happened to me, right? I got a raise, but then all of a sudden my grocery bill's 3% higher. And people are like, well, you spent $100 or $150 a week. What's 3% of that, right? In the reality, in the long term of things, it's not that big of a deal. But that's every week for me. And if you add that up over the long term, plus if you add that to all the other costs, you look at everything in a complete whole. I'm sitting here paying out 3% more than what I was making in my earnings on average, and all of a sudden I'm farther in debt than I was before. And I can't be the only person that has this happen to them,
Yeah, well, that's if you're using your credit to cover all of your expenses or whatever. Then obviously you're going in debt, so you're paying interest on that. And we all know about predatory loans and credit card debt. Like those kinds of things you can barely make the minimum payments, and it takes you 30 years to pay off a $5,000 debt. We're talking massive triplings of the overall money that you would have spent. But what they talk about, just the bare bones numbers here, the cost of food, shelter, and gas have risen significantly in the past year. Gas skyrocketed more than 24%, and the rent for primary residence jumped 3.6%. And meals at restaurants and cafeterias rose 2.8%. So these prices have risen roughly at the same rate as wages, erasing any gains workers might have hoped to realize via these bigger paychecks. And so what we had is we had the tax plan that says that you're going to be getting more money in to your paycheck from the tax plan, but also all of these new tariffs that he's putting on all of these things are increasing the cost of everything that we're buying. So when you're talking about the raw materials, if anybody wants a list, if anybody wants to talk, I've been listening to a bunch of podcasts recently that are talking to actual major employers, because I am a small business manufacturer, but I use the raw materials that are provided. I buy American steel. I buy Chinese steel. Basically, whoever has the better deal. And in most cases, there isn't really a major difference between those. But everything has gone up. the Chinese steel, the Brazilian steel, the American steel, everything costs more now. And across the board, it's more difficult and more expensive for me to do business. And therefore, I am increasing all of my costs to my employer or to my customers. Everybody has to pay more. And also on top of that, I have more costs in taxes. Taxes have gone up as far as personal property and real estate taxes and things like that. And so I have to press those taxes in, or press those prices in. And then on top of that, you have the cost that you do just for general business or whatever in inflation. You have to account for all these things. So no matter what I do, I have to increase my costs more and more and more and more. But maybe some of these jobs are jobs that I've been doing for 3 to 5 years at roughly the same price because there has been no pressure for me to increase those. Now I'm increasing and customers are unhappy. And so there's pressure on me to keep my prices low, or maybe they'll go elsewhere. This is happening in a lot of places throughout the United States right now. Is like all of these costs are going up. And so what are they doing to try to cut those costs, to try to cut those profits? They're just not giving employees wage increases.
Yeah. And it's funny because in the article, they talk about the Federal Reserve Chair, Jerome Powell, calling it a puzzle why wages aren't being aren't rising faster. And I'm sitting here going, hold on a second.
Puzzle.
How is this a puzzle, my friend?
No,
how do you feel this is a puzzle? And I hate saying puzzle because puzzle feels like a dirty word now. But I just want to go. Hold on a second, my friend. Yeah. You're not comprehending that. Well, guess what? Trump and the GOP gave a bunch of tax breaks. Guess what they did? Oh, the majority of companies reinvested in their own stock. They bought back stock they had to sell. Hold on a second. You want to sit here and tell me you don't understand why wages aren't going up? It's because they're not investing in the people, because they're banking on the fact that unemployment is so low that they can have certain amounts of people come into them every day. And so you could take certain jobs and funnel them out to the lowest set of people and think that you're going to continue to be able to produce good product. Because if you have good managers, you can rotate through the people fast enough because there's enough people in the labor pool to funnel this low income thing. And instead of saying, well, I'll pay $15 an hour for a high-low worker, I'll pay $13 instead of $12. I'll get an okay person instead of a good person. And as long as I can rotate them and mold them through these temp companies, what do I care? They're absorbing the higher cost, not me.
Yeah, there's a bunch of different reasons why we have to worry about wages and things along those lines that are not going up. It's like when we talk about why wages aren't increasing, back in the day, the chairman of the Fed, I believe it was Alan Greenspan, and then I can't remember who it was right after him. But one of the things they talked about is job insecurity. Job insecurity is a thing that helps keep wages down. So if you aren't sure that if you fight for a better wage that you can get a job somewhere else, you are insecure about your job. You're not certain that you can keep that job. You're not certain that you can get another job to immediately increase or match what you currently had. So you are more likely to stay where you are as a humble servant, a peasant listening to their master. Well, also, if you take this to the national scale, what have we been seeing throughout this country? Union busting. States across the board are pushing this whole idea of right to work. They're busting states. Only something like 6 or 7% of the people in this country now are unionized. I'm in a small business, so there's no point for a union. But I'm actually thinking about joining the MEE union because I kind of sort of want to just be paying dues to a freaking union somewhere. Somebody that's fighting for something. There's got to be something out there. But the whole point of that is that if more places, more states are saying you don't have to pay union, the whole idea of right to work, we don't have to break that down. If everybody's interested in it, just take a look in the Wikipedia will clarify that plenty and clear enough. But the whole idea of right to work is it is a break, and it makes it easier for corporations and corporate states and lobbyists or whatever to keep wages down, and that's what's been happening. We see union busting, and we're seeing job insecurity from the last recession, which was such a big deal, that people don't want to push the boat because they don't want to lose their job, because they don't want to go defunct on their mortgage like they almost did when the economy broke. Like, there's just, people are scared, and when people are scared, they don't do anything. They won't push the button, and that is what I see is keeping those wages down. So Federal Reserve Jerome Powell, I'm sorry, pal, but you have no clue what's happening in the lower middle class and middle class in this country, and that's the reason why the wages aren't going, because there's nobody pushing these corporations to give that money back. They're making record profits, and nobody is forcing them to spend that money back down to the people.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know. No matter what we say on this, people aren't going to agree with us in some aspect. I mean, but when you look at it and you look at how do we take wages to the next level, we have to do something different than what we're doing. And the biggest problem is that people are under the illusion that if you get a big raise or you get these raises, that you're going to match inflation. But if we don't keep inflation at a steady pace, all that happens is you get a fake raise. You're making less money. And I used to argue, and maybe we should do a segment on this, but I used to argue that, well, if you look at it, inflation and wages match, but they don't. And if you look at what inflation happens, your wages that increase by it for the majority of the country don't match where the inflation happens. Therefore, the average, moderate, or low-income user gets screwed.
Yeah, in the end, that's really what we're looking at. So, like, the Fed basically says it's at 2%. That is their thing that they've been done for no real reason. Like, if you look into it, like, there's no real reason why they think that's the best thing. It's just kind of like this, what we collectively, it's like we looked at the numbers in the past and said 2% sounds good. 2% is a good place to be, and 2.9% is pretty high. And so they want it symmetrically around 2%, and they've been doing things to do it. So, like, this year there's going to be 4 interest rate increases, and in those increases, what that does is usually bring inflation down. And so we've been basically keeping the interest rate down low, and that basically increases the interest rate, or the inflation rate. And so they're trying to just switch that now. But one of the problems is that the wages aren't increasing with that. So typically, what happens when they increase the interest rates is you start seeing wage increase. And then also you start seeing interest rate drop back down to the level that they're looking for. But only 2 of those things are happening, and they're trying to figure out why. And one of the reasons is this the union issue. And so we're essentially, the little guy is trying to get the whole point of this out here is that, hey, we were told we're getting more money. We're probably not going to get that because the tax bill isn't going to help us. It's going to help people who have the ability to bypass the inflation rate, and their tax rates are in the capital gains range of 15 to 14%. They're going to be seeing no problems. They're going to be seeing those influx of income, but the hard workers, the income earners, people who pay payroll tax, they're not going to be seeing it. And so we've kind of sort of been given the reach around here, and it's definitely not. There's no major payout in the end, and so hopefully in the future we can turn something out. But as far as right now, it doesn't look like economically that's going to happen.
Exactly, and I don't know what to say to that. All I can say is that we need to turn around, switch the votes, figure out a way to remove
boost
certain
unions.
People out of offices, and yeah, we should be supporting candidates that support unions. I don't know how else to say it. Like, we should be supporting candidates that support unions. There you go.
Yeah.
That's the easiest way to say it.
Yeah, unions and transparency. Give those both to me, and I will be a happy middle-class dude.
Exactly. So for the last segment that we thought we covered tonight, and again, remember, we forgone or forgone or fordued. I don't know what the word is, but we got rid of the Russia segment.
We have forgone.
Forgone.
Vladimir. Dude, I don't understand what the deal is. I've seen the difference. People have been talking about Vladimir, and now they say Vladimir. Like, they're like trying to actually say his name with the proper accents where they should be if you are properly speaking with a Russian accent. I don't understand why people are giving Vladimir so much deference. Like, we should say his name as horribly as we can in this country because he's a jerk. Like, we should butcher it at all times. So anytime he goes on the RT and he sees somebody from I don't know, Fox News, like, they should be ruining his name. Just that little bit. Even though they're supporting him, they should be like just butchering it. Like Vladimir. It should make him angry. That'd be a good time.
Vladimir Putin.
Just skip letters. Just skip letters. Who cares? Who gives a crap? There's no L after the V. It's just Vod.
Vladimir. It's the L's in there. It's just twisted with the A and the R. It's like that.
Well,
and maybe
you
it's
know
a
what that
German
sounds
thing.
like.
It's just this whole German thing that, like, I see Russia as the new Nazis, and I don't know what to say about that.
And they're working their way. There's the geopolitical recession that I've mentioned multiple times throughout our show. But like, what that reminds me of, that weird accent problem that we're having there, that reminds me a whole bunch of Sacha Baron Cohen's new show, Who is America? That's going to be our third segment. We really, like, I personally think this show, I don't know, did you like Sacha Baron Cohen stuff? Do you like the Ali G? Do you like the Borat? Do you like the I don't know, whatever the other stuff that he's done is? Because I've never really been a fan, but this show, it makes me uncomfortable to watch because I don't really like prank or like candid camera stuff, but I appreciate what he's doing.
No, and it's kind of funny because I never watched much of his stuff. I've seen Borat, and I actually don't have a problem with Borat. I think it's a decent movie, but I don't think it's not something I'd ever watch more than once, right? You know, it's just, I don't know, it's okay. And
I just never, I couldn't do it. I don't know. I think it's the same problem I have with mockumentaries. Like, I know it's fake, so I don't like it.
and I would say the same thing, except for the fact that there's certain mockumentaries I really enjoyed, such as Portlandia. I love that one.
I know.
I love The Office, Parks and Rec. I mean, like, all of those are in my okay. Even if we go back to, here you go, this is going to date me a little bit. Even if we go back to looking at not the original Office, but the IT Crowd, right?
The original Office in England is older than the IT Crowd?
Well, it is. But the IT Crowd is better than that original Office. Like, the original Office mockumentary is great, but the original IT Crowd, you're just like, oh my God. Like, I mean, like, they're geniuses. It's like British people have the humor that I like. Okay. And, like, there's certain things I can't understand or befuddle me, but the IT Crowd makes so much. I mean, like, literally, like, I could tell you, you know, one of the guys is like, I'll take a vowel. I think that's the most hilarious thing I've ever heard in my life. And, like, everybody listening to this is going to be like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Who the hell would do this? But they make fun of this game show type thing, and he's like this genius on this, like, weird European game show, and he gets to put in this elite club, and it's just, they end up going in the back alley to have a game show brawl. And, like, I'm sorry, but, like, that would be like me and my board games. Like, all of a sudden it would be like, you're good at that, I'm good at that, snap my fingers, okay, hold on, we're going to the alley, we're gonna battle this out. You know, like, that's me.
Bring your 20-sided die. This is gonna get nasty.
Exactly.
You know, okay, so I can understand that, and I definitely can, you know, give deference to the British side of those things. So, speaking of, you know, high quality television or whatever, like, I honestly, seriously, never thought this show would be any good. I had seen clips and thoughts, and I was like, Sacha is like a TV show guy. He's not a TV show guy. He's a movie guy. Like, he has to bear you in, but, like, it can't be a recurring thing. Like, it has to be a one-time thing. The joke can't last for more than one season, more than one movie. And I honestly don't know if the show itself will last for more than one. But this is a Showtime show, Who is America? And the first episode is basically guns and insanity. And super proud guy here of Bernie Sanders is in the first episode of this show. And the whole premise of this show is basically to take people who are in politics and assault them with absurdity and let them dig their own graves and just take on some kind of craziness. And the stuff that Sacha Baron Cohen feeds to Bernie Sanders could be possibly weirdly construed into this weird attack the 1% elitist, destroy them, they're all bad, they have all the money. And it's ridiculous, but Bernie doesn't take the bait. He doesn't take the bait, and he basically tells Sacha to his face, or his heavily proselytized face, that he doesn't understand what the hell he's talking about. This is absurd. And it's a beautiful moment, because later on in that episode, as he goes through people, basically there's a meeting with this. He calls himself Dr. Nira Kane Nigoncello. I couldn't even say it. He said it so fast. Sacha does a really good job with accents. But he meets with two people, a Trump delegate, Jane Page, and her husband, who is also a staunch Republican. And it's an absurd, basically, premise on that one. It's just him saying ridiculous things to see how far he could push them. But that wasn't the crazy part of the episode. There's an art section in there too, also, where in the end, this guy who pretends to be an ex-con, Sacha Baron Cohen, he convinces an art critic to clip her pubic hair to make a brush, and he's just completely ridiculous, kind of like mocking art. That also is not very difficult to do, but what he does when he does the guns changes everything. He basically tries to get Republican representatives to say things that would be unbearable to anyone who actually thinks about what they're saying. And there's only one guy that on the show, Representative Matt Gaetz, Gaetz, he pretty much says, like, you want me to say something that I haven't verified and I don't understand? And he's a younger guy, and he's the only guy that basically comes out and says, like, listen, I can't take whatever you're saying, even though it's pro-gun, to heart. Everything else, like all of these guys, Representative Dana Rohrabacher, Trent Lott, Joe Wilson, and then Joe Walsh, who isn't a representative. He's just a former Republican congressman. And then Philip Van Cleve, and then Larry Pratt. All these guys are NRA or GOP major perspective and leaders, and they say the most absurd and idiotic things you have ever heard, like arming children, arming toddlers, giving kids guns. It's unbelievable. And so, like, Chris, I know this is something that is I kind of dumped on you, but like the Philip guy, who his name is Philip Von Cleve, he is known as an NRA super guy. Like, he is all over everything that has it. And like they have a 9mm Glock, and they put a puppy on the top of it. And they call it the puppy pistol. And he sings, you know, the head, shoulders, knees and toes song.
Oh yeah.
In that, he goes head, shoulders, not the knees, not the toes. So he's talking about shoot them in the head, shoulders, not the knees, not the toes. Basically, shooting head or torso, which is what they tell police, which is one of the reasons why people get killed by police officers on a regular basis. Like, this guy's singing a song. Sacha Baron Cohen convinces him to sing a song to children about
it's like,
shooting.
Have you ever seen that show, Wonder Chosen?
Yeah.
That's what. I'll be honest. I watched some clips. That's what this feels like to me. Like, it's like Wonder Chosen for adults in the political realm. You know, like Wonder Chosen, you watch and you know, okay, everybody. If you've never seen Wonder Chosen, you should watch at least one episode, and then you can come back and tell us to go, to go screw off, because this is ridiculously insane. But watching this in knowing that this guy's dressing up and he's acting out and he's faking all this stuff, like, just knowing that, you just sit here and go, hold on a second, this is like Wonder Chosen for political adults. It's insane.
But like this is
why
Wonder
would they put a gun with
money.
a bear?
This is Wonder Chosen with money. Think about that.
Oh,
for a
yeah,
second,
there
though.
you go.
So, like, Wonder Chosen shows up, Sacha Baron Cohen, full of prosthesis. Like, his face looks nothing like it normally does. And he shows up with, like, a puppy stuffed animal on a pistol. And they had this thing for infants, which is basically a stuffed teddy bear that has a pull string on the back of it. Like, when you, like, pull, like, the Woody pull string from Toy Story, or when you, like, he sings the song back, they have a gun inside a stuffed animal. And you pull the pull string, and it shoots out of the mouth. And this guy thinks this is a great idea. Like, all of these weapons, like there's like a assault rifle with like a snake's tail and a snake's mouth, and he's like shooting. I mean, the whole idea of this entire thing, like they're just like yes to all of these things. Children, toddlers with guns, and they repeatedly come back to that that children like 1 or 2 to like 4, they haven't developed any kind of fear. And so they don't understand why you would be scared of guns. So they need to teach kids to be okay with guns. This is a good thing. This is something to be scared of. And the earlier you teach them, the more likely they would be to love guns and love that whole thing. And this guy, Sacha Baron Cohen's character in this is like a former Mossad agent. And they love this. They love. We know the GOP loves Israel and all of the Israel soldiers. Like this is just a consistent thing. And so like all these guys think that this guy, this Israelite coming in and just being like pro gun. And he's one of the things that he talks about. He says like my son loved. This is Sacha Baron Cohen. He says my son loved guns. He loved shooting guns. This was a wonderful thing. God rest his soul. Like he says it is funny. His son loves shooting guns and he's dead. And the guy, like, I think it was the Larry Pratt guy, or it may have been Philip Moncrief. I can't remember which one of it does it to, or maybe he said it to both of them. And they're both like, "Oh, that's good. It's good that you love guns." Like, holy, gee, he's dead. You psychopaths! Like, holy crap! And it's like watching this was just. I have never seen anything as well worded and well put together to just eviscerate the gun culture in America. Like this is Citizen Zero. This is I typically don't like Sacha Baron Cohen. This is that good that I'm over here fawning. It really is. I'm fawning over it. It's amazing.
Yeah, and that's the funny thing here is it's this weird niche, and like the show that we recently watched was Wyatt Sinek's Look at America, and like. I thought that was deep, and then you watch this, and it's like, this is kind of funny, but on the exact same level as that. The only thing I ever wonder is, what do they cut out? Will they ever offer any of that? And like, I hate when people are set up. Like, that's part of the reason why I don't like some of these things. Like, the episode you showed me, like, I was like, this reminds me of Ashton Kutcher's Punk'd. Like, that's just what it reminds me of. And like, I remember watching Punk'd and being like, that's funny, but if that was me in that situation, I think people would be dead. Like, I really think I'd probably kill people. Like, I think I would be that angry, I would start killing people. And then, like, I would be in jail, and it would be this big thing. And, you sit there and you think about that, and you go, it's really not that funny. Or remember Tom Green?
Yeah, Tom Green show.
Yeah, remember the very first person he did that to was his parents. And they were so pissed. And, like, if you go back and watch that episode, you can actually see them being angry with him on the show. Like, they're truly angry.
Bam Margera used to do the same thing. He used to torture his stepfather. I mean, like, all of that kind of stuff. Like, I mean, all of those shows, like, I never really liked that stuff. Like, I never really liked, like, the prank culture. I definitely didn't like Candid Camera and all that kind of stuff. And so, like, this show was a surprise for me. I was just like, okay, I don't like... And so this obviously could be some cultural bias in me, but I will say as a disclaimer that the things that they get people to say on this show, like, I don't care how you cut it. Like, there's no editing. Like, the second episode, this is the second episode. He gets what's his name? He gets Georgia State Representative Jason Spencer to scream the N-word because he is told that it is a way to create the most controversy or the most attention if he's being attacked by an Islamic terrorist.
Yeah,
he's told that, and he says Jason Spencer by this Mossad guy again. He says basically, what's the most offensive thing you can say in the United States? And it's the N-word. And so this is the best way to create attention if you're being attacked by someone. And so he says, no, we're going to do this thing. And it's like the guy, he's just like, okay, we're going to go. Ready? I'm attacking you. And the guy starts like screaming the N-word while walking, away from him. And then Sacha Baron Cohen says, no, that's not the N-word. It's not the right word. I think he said like nudity was the actual word or whatever. And the guy looked like, ugh. But like, I don't care what way you cut that. Like, there's no like, oh, you caught me. I didn't know I was being joke cameraed. Like, that's real. That's not like that's subconscious. That's honest. That is legit. And it's like there's a difference between like if you're recording something and it's like I didn't know I was being recorded and I squealed like a little girl because I was scared of a rat. Like, that would make me angry. But like if I saw a black person on the street and started screaming the N-word because he was asking for money, like, I don't care if that's camera or no camera. That's real. Like, you could never get me. You could never get me to do that. Like, you could never be like, Bernie Sanders comes to my house in Kentwood and says, "Listen, Chris, I need you to help the Progressive Party. I need you to help our revolution. I need you to go on the corner of Eastern and 52nd, and I need you to yell the N-word to every black person that comes to that neighborhood." Like, that is never going to happen. That there's no place on earth that even my idols, as far as political politics, are going to. It's just not real. And so, like, I understand the whole setting up people, but also, there's no way you could ever get me to yell the N-word because I'm being attacked by a jihadist. Like, that is not something I do. And it's like, I mean, it's indicting. It really is. And the guy, Jason Spencer, he is being the people that have seen the second episode, they're saying that there are calls for him to resign because of the other things he does in this episode. About, they said that if a jihadist is attacking him, that he should rub his naked butt against them because that instantly makes them gay, and so they will be attacked by their own men. And like, the level of absurdity that is accepted by this guy is it's genuinely surprising. Like, I really didn't think it was that bad.
Yeah, and well, I mean, that's part of the reason why we have Trump. Those are the people that voted. So I don't know what to tell you, man. Yeah. They voted. We got number 45, and the orange Cheeto monster couldn't disappear faster. Yeah, and I agree with you. I don't understand why this dude did this either. You know, like, I just don't get why any part of him would ever thought this was acceptable. Is it just like a shot culture? Is it like camera. You know, he's like, hey, look, I'm the new what's the name of the guy that was God, I can't remember his name now.
From where?
Yeah, he's a radio personality, and he's really skinny with curly black type hair. Howard Stern. Thank you. There you
go. Only the king of fucking media.
Yeah. So you look at Howard Stern, it's just shock value, right? There's a lot of shock value that was in, especially his earlier work, right? And you know, we talk about we talk about that, and we talk about, like, okay, Wonder shows it. There's a lot of pretty offensive things in that show. And it's a shock value thing of the early 2000s. And now we're more educated, we're more evolved, we understand different things. The question I have is, like, did this Spencer guy, again, did he literally just sit down and go, you know what? Screw it. What's the worst that can happen? Or think about, like, have you ever seen 30 Rock? Yeah. In 30 Rock, you know, think about the character there. He just all of a sudden, you know, he just goes, I'm crazy. I'm Tracy Jordan. I can do whatever I want. And it's just like, did Tracy this guy Morgan? Think he was... I'm sorry, Tracy Morgan, yes.
Yeah.
But did he just go, dude, I think I just do whatever I want? And you're like, no, hold on. You're a representative. We expect you to be a citizen, not like some crazy pseudo-artistic, venomous, horrible thing. Like, we don't think you're real. We thought you were on a show. You're all of a sudden real? Hold on, folks.
Well, that was the whole point. That was the whole point of this show, though. So, like, Sacha Baron Cohen was talked. He was asked and interviewed about the whole new show, and he basically said, this show isn't about offending people or controversy. He said this show was about getting people fired. Like, he is quoted in saying that, and the whole point of that is, like, this isn't just like, you know, just trying to make people look like silly goofs on TV and get him to sign off. Like, he's putting this out there without these people saying, yeah, go ahead and show that. Like, he is full on attacking people in the political sphere. And that's why I'm saying that there's no second season to this. Like, this, there will be no, wow, this seems really too good to be true. And that's the whole thing. This entire thing is it's people being interviewed by a guy who seems too good to be true. So, like, the first episode about the gun thing, like, this is a Mossad guy who was like, we should give guns to toddlers. The NRA guy was like, oh my God, it's too good to be true. Like, yes, it is. It is. Now you look like a complete idiot on national television. Showtime is making millions of dollars off of you, and it's getting shared on YouTube, and it's one of the greatest things ever. You are a colossal idiot. Second thing is also the people, on the second episode, Ted Koppel shows up. And in the same vein as Bernie Sanders, Sacha Baron Cohen goes on, and he basically tries to talk. He pretends that he is a PhD, and he forced kind of sort of a debate about Trump's inauguration crowd sizes. And at first, Koppel seriously attempts to refute his claims, basically saying like Trump's inauguration size was the biggest thing ever. And basically at the end of it, Koppel sighs deeply before he even hears the rest. He says, I mean, no disrespect to you, but this is a waste of time. Like the respectable people who hear an absurd person saying absurd things, what they decide to do is not to go batshit insane. Like we hear all of the people like a 17... I can't remember the guys. There's a guy on Reddit. It's just it's not a guy though. It's like a collective of people. And non 371717 I think is what it is. It's a group of people who all post the same thing, and it's all just like pro Trump all the time, every day. But like they always talk about how the liberals and the Democrats are like cutting their own throats. The most respectable guys who are pushed by Sacha Baron Cohen by stuff that essentially should make them go insane, they just basically say, no, this is dumb, this is absurd, you are completely wrong, and I quit this. But the Republicans on this end are basically getting fed what they want, and they just go with it. They don't second guess it. They don't question it. And that's kind of what I think Sacha Baron Cohen is trying to go with this, is that they're not even asking. They're just saying, this is what I want to hear. What I want to hear. I love it. Let's do it. And then they get themselves into these deep holes.
Yeah, and I don't know. It's now on my watch list. I have to see it. For those of you who don't have Showtime, hopefully you can find it on YouTube. Maybe we'll pirate it and pretend we're our own library. You know, library, whatever you want to call it.
Larber. Well,
Liber.
like I mean, they in the link that we have Dick Cheney, who is signing a water jug.
Yep. Like just that image, or like, and some of me says maybe that should be the image for the show here. I don't know, but like just that image.
I think it will be.
I just see this and I go, there's no way this is real. This can't be real, folks. I don't like. This is wonder shows in politics, and I'm just sitting here going, folks. What is wrong? Hey, Dick Cheney.
Waterboarding kid. I don't understand.
Are you sure? It looks like a beat up gallon jug. Are you sure you want to sign that? Are you sure you want to put your name to it? And Dick Cheney's probably like, what do I give a crap? I'm a millionaire. You know, suck it. Like that's what it almost feels like. He's just like telling us to suck it, and we're all sitting here going, hey, we're gonna pay millions of dollars to watch this show about him basically telling us to go blow it out our ass. I don't know. It's just it's really hard to swallow.
Sacha Baron Cohen's character, his name is Morad, and he says at one point, he says, I have killed some terrorist. How does it feel being the king of terrorist killers? This is him talking to Dick Cheney. He says, I mean, you killed 100,000 actual terrorists and about 700,000 potential terrorists, Morad says. And then after a casual laugh, Cheney says, well, it was never personal. I wasn't in the same position you are when it was kill or be killed. But Cheney is just like, the dude tells me, he says, you killed at least 100,000 actual terrorists and 700,000 potential terrorists. So Sacha Baron Cohen's character tells Dick Cheney to his face, you have killed 800,000 people. The minority of them being actual terrorists, and the majority of them being, well, we weren't sure, so we killed them. And he laughs. Like that is, that is exactly what like sneaking into the hen house and like being the fox it really was. Like he really does sneak in and get these people to drop their guard by being just like the best thing they thought they'd ever encountered, and he just ruins it. I mean, he ruins it, and the best thing is like after the show's been posted, like there have been multiple people who have actually had press conferences over their appearances on this show.
Exactly, and I don't know. I'm kind of excited. I like to see where this is going to take us from here. I kind of think
I
of
sure
it
hope
as
it stays good.
a more reactionary Wyatt Cynic show. But hey, I don't know. With that being said, Hannah and I have talked ourselves blue in the face tonight.
Yeah.
Thank you also for joining us so much for Cellar Door Skeptics, episode 136. We'll be back next week with another amazing episode about the world. drink. About the world, politics, and whatever floats our boat for the week. So we'll be back with another, again, amazing episode. Stay tuned for more Cellar Door Skeptics.
You've been listening to a presentation of Cellar Door Skeptics. Check us out on Spreaker. CellarDoorSkeptics.com.